Welcome to the State of the Nation weekly update, brought to you by our partners, Pace Car Rental. Visit their website. When you need to book a car, use the code SONA, S-O-N-A, and get a discount on every car hire from Pace Car Rental. Support them because they support us, and you can also support us by doing two things. You can subscribe to the channel, and you can consider coming to our one-day summit where we're going to have some of your favorite speakers, Frans Mashele, Dawie Roodt, Mandisa Mashego, Dr. Frans Cronje, and many others. Not to be missed. Come and join us on the 13th of November. Do you remember those dark days, the late stages of the Jacob Zuma presidency, where suddenly it was all laid bare? We could see the extent of state capture. Every sentence ended with the Gupta brothers. There was this capture. Every morning you woke up and there were planes at Waterkloof Air Base, and there was another state-owned company that had been captured, and the lights were starting to go off, and it was just a mess. And we prayed that this bad time could be ended. And then the ANC went to their conference in 2017. We knew this was going to be a key moment, and we all hoped that there would be a sign of light, and we thought Cyril Ramaphosa was the man. We got so excited when he won in a squeaker of an election, and we thought, it's time. He got up, he said, "Tuma mina, send me. We're going to fix the place up. No more corruption, no more maladministration. It's going to be great." That beautiful smile, we were all so hopeful. Well, here we are, 8 years later, and we're back where we were in those days of Jacob Zuma, except that the comrades learnt from State Capture 1.0, and they have perfected it in State Capture 2.0, with a massive addition of violence. Whereas the Gupta brothers were just there to steal money. And, you know, people who today, oddly enough, sit in parliament, like Brian Molefe, Lucky Montana, these guys were just grifters. Now we've got the real criminals in charge. These are people that don't need to hold office because they can just buy other people who hold office. But they want to steal everything, and they couldn't care what they steal. The Guptas wanted to steal money from Eskom, money from trains. The new criminals don't give a damn if it kills your grandmother. They'll steal money from hospitals. They'll steal money from schools. They don't care. There is now no morality. And where we're sitting at the moment is at a very, very critical moment in this country's history. Because these criminal syndicates are now armed and dangerous and on the run. And South Africa's at that point where we either become a failed state, a gangster state, Colombia, where you drive to work and you're going to have to drive around bodies as people are being shot, where everything is run by a mafia, or you and me and the rest of our citizenry are going to have to turn around. I can tell you categorically, it's not going to be done by our politicians, and I'll explain to you why. So, let's sketch the scene. Let me tell you why I'm so dramatic with this presentation today. We were all rightly outraged when, after General Mkhwanazi had his press conference on July the 6th, and he made some unbelievable allegations that it stunned the president into action, that it took him only a week to respond. A record for the president. And what did he do? He didn't say we're going to have a court case, we're going to put people in jail. He said we're going to have a commission of inquiry. And we were outraged. We said we want more action. What was President Cyril Ramaphosa trying to do? He was trying to use the old ANC playbook. You have a commission of inquiry, you try and water down everything they say, you kick for touch, you do this, you do that. Eventually, we all lose the will to live. Nobody takes it further. But even 2 weeks of the commission of inquiry has unearthed such shattering evidence that it had to go. And they succeeded. They've managed to shut down even the commission of inquiry. Let's talk about what's happened in the last week. The chief evidence leader, he's like the main prosecutor, Terry Mthethwa, suddenly withdraws from the team doing the prosecution or doing the questioning for the commission, questioning the evidence, questioning the people. This was a guy with a big reputation, but even he wasn't brave enough to do it. He gave a lily-livered, bad couple of interviews saying they haven't got enough money and I don't need the money, but other people need the money. This is going to be a mess. Money, money, money. Okay. Didn't sound, I don't know if anybody was convinced by that. I was led to believe that lawyers were good liars. This one wasn't. There was nothing convincing in him withdrawing because of financial reasons. That just sounds weak. Remember, they've got a budget of 147 million rand, which by government standards is a very low amount of money. We know that there's 700 million rand sitting there for a national dialogue that's not going to take place. So it's not a money issue. So he pulled out. What happens the very next day? A week after General Mkhwanazi has said that former police minister Nathi Mthethwa had interfered when Mkhwanazi was acting police chief. He said it was the worst political interference he ever had in his life, which meant that there was more stories to come from about our former police minister Nathi Mthethwa. What does he do? He falls out of the 22nd story room in the Hyatt in Paris. I mean, this sounds like one of those bad John le Carré novels. That the ambassador to France, a former questionable minister, a guy who was always this lurking figure in the dark through those days of state capture 1.0, now linked to state capture 2.0, falls out of a window before he can go and testify at the commission. And then we've got another Lieutenant General, Dumisani Khumalo, presenting real proof, WhatsApp conversations between criminals and fixers and this one and that one, promising the criminals that certain things were going to be done, and they were delivered on. And we are all sitting there watching this saying, oh my word, there's names, there's proof, there's figures, this is all getting very real. Suddenly, this general is too sick to carry on giving information at the commission. And then one of the commissioners, you would have thought there seems to be a cast of thousands, they have to cancel the commission some more because somebody else has to go to a meeting. And sorry, this commission is not going to take place for nearly 2 weeks. But in the meantime, the crime goes on. And we're in a death struggle. The information that has emerged is that these criminal syndicates are now very sophisticated and their tentacles spread everywhere. We recently interviewed Jeff Wicks in his book Shadow State, Why Babita Dearkaran Had to Die, where he outlined all of this information with regards to just one part of their operation, which was stealing money from Tembisa Hospital. Now it turns out that President Ramaphosa's nephew, one of the kingpins, we haven't heard a word from the president, haven't heard a word from any of the other politicians as to what's going on with Morgan Maumela, the president's nephew from his first marriage, who he claims to not know. One of the kingpins, he hasn't denounced it, he hasn't said anything about it. One of the kingpins. So this information starting to emerge, and look, it doesn't take a smart person to work out that surely the beginning and the end of these operations wasn't just Tembisa Hospital, because this was a very easy plan to roll out to many facilities. If you're going to do one hospital in Gauteng with the complicity of the Gauteng Department of Health, why wouldn't you do the next hospital? Charlotte Makeka is much bigger. Chris Hani Baragwanath is much bigger. Go steal from those places. The budgets are bigger, and they must be. I mean, you're not going to say, oh, we're only stealing from one hospital. Are you mad? It's like McDonald's. You've got the recipe. You know how to roll out restaurants. Roll them out everywhere. Find every town that needs a hamburger and roll out. You know how to do it. Why would these criminal syndicates stop at one hospital? Absolutely not. And their modus operandi, much like the Guptas, wasn't that once it got going, it was applicable to all the SOEs, if one remembers what the Guptas did. They didn't just stop at Eskom. They didn't just stop at Transnet. They went on, Denel, you name it. They went through the whole lot. Why not? It's a very easy program to replicate. So clearly these criminal syndicates are everywhere. But now we're seeing the fight back. We are seeing the fight back against the commission, against this whole story collapsing. What does that fight back look like? Well, remember Parliament was stunned into action, and they announced an ad hoc committee in Parliament to do the same thing, to have a look at these Mkhwanazi allegations. What happened? Well, between the person meant to lead the thing, ANC deployee by the name of Soviet Lechanyane and Julius Malema, they managed to ensure that that ad hoc committee just doesn't even get started. Score one for the bad guys. There's other political parties that are there. The second biggest party in the country, the Democratic Alliance. Bagel, they've said nothing about this. What are they doing? Sitting back. Doing what? Saying, don't worry, Helen Zille's going to be mayor of Johannesburg. That'll fix everything. While they sit in government doing nothing. There are 10 parties in the government of national unity. Not one of them has said anything about this. We saw the Patriotic Alliance playing the president, saying, no, our deputy leader, who was found at the premises when one of the kingpins of these criminal syndicates was getting arrested, he was there. So the party does their own investigation and clears him, then threatens the government they're going to pull out of the government national unity unless he gets put back into his position as the MMC for transport in Johannesburg. A very lucrative portfolio because you get to manage all the vehicles for the Metro Police and the entire city. Why was that position so important, one wonders, that you were prepared to hold the country to ransom? This is starting to look like nobody can afford for these stories to get out. So everybody is providing color. Everybody is protecting the bad guys in this. Yeah, we did a show about the killing of whistleblowers and this new terrible turn of events where some of the liquidators of companies that have been bled dry have been killed because people don't want them to liquidate the companies. And one of the most famous murders, infamous murders of liquidators, was the father and son team, Thomas and Cloete Murray, that were killed on the highway in Gangster's Paradise. Well, do you know that just yesterday, the person who has been found guilty of being the shooter got murdered in the Millpark Hospital parking lot when he went to visit somebody at the hospital? Why? Because if you read Jeff Wicks's book, one shooter got caught there and sang like a canary. They couldn't take the chance. So the shooter gets killed. They are expendable. But the syndicate just doesn't need the word to get out as to who put the hit on Thomas and Cloete Murray. This is really, really getting bad. So what should the opposition parties be doing? I mean, obviously the ANC are implicated. They are not going to rush to go and have court cases against themselves. Just, you would imagine by now, there's not one politician at senior level, at national level, and even at local level that isn't involved with these syndicates. These syndicates were taking money from the hospital, which is at provincial level. They had bought the police, which are at national level. They had bought the Minister of Police, two of them. The former Minister of Police, Becky Cele, stayed in the guy's penthouse apartment. As a minister, he was in the criminal's apartment. Got to be joking, right? So everybody is implicated. And they're looking at this and they're saying, well, if these mugs, i.e. the 60 million of us that live in this country, we're going to clearly do nothing about it, and we're going to continue to vote these people in. And now it's got so bad that it doesn't matter who you or I vote for. Because even the parties that are meant to be clean are doing nothing about the dirty parties. In actual fact, they're keeping them in power. So this is starting to get really ugly, and they are stealing our futures, our children's futures, our grandchildren's futures. Because remember, the big prize, if you were stealing money from Tembisa Hospital, would be to get the National Health Insurance Act in force so that the government can take over the running of every single hospital. Imagine how nice that would be. If you could go and do that to every Netcare and every Mediclinic as well, and just steal all the money and it's coming out of the government coffers. That's why they want to pass national health insurance. Okay, even schools. Why pass Bella Act? You want to pass it so that the school governing body has no control over the money. That reverts back to government. That's what the Bella Act says. And we haven't even got into land expropriation. That one speaks for itself. So you're starting to see that these new laws have been passed ostensibly for ideological reasons. They sold as these things, but in actual fact, it's to get control over more things that the government can control, because these syndicates control government and they can get their money out of it. And you and I pay the price. And eventually, we might as well just sign debit orders and give it all to the criminal syndicates, because it doesn't look like there's any party out there or any grouping that gives a damn about us. South Africa is at a desperate place right now. It has suddenly become a death battle. And it's going to be, the only way we can turn this around is through voters voting differently. And it has to start at the local government election. And that happens, sadly, only in a year from now. The question is, what happens between now and then? Well, we'll certainly make enough noise about it on podcasts. The mainstream media will do an attempt to cover it, and I think they've done what they can do. But where are our politicians? Silent. Silent, silent, silent. Suddenly, the only politicians you can hear are people running for mayor in Johannesburg. Where's the president? Where's this new so-called Minister of Police? Nothing. Okay, where's the leader of the opposition parties? All of them. We've got 1 million of them. Nothing. Where's John Steenhuisen? Quiet. We must punish these parties that are keeping these thieves in power. That is the only way that this gets resolved to our benefit. To say, because you kept the ANC in power, we won't vote for you. Because you kept this coalition in Johannesburg together, or Nelson Mandela Bay, or City of Tshwane, wherever, Kuruleni, We must look at those parties that are keeping the ANC in power and punish them. That is the only way people will learn that they have to be accountable to the public in South Africa. This is a very distressing time. I've got to tell you, the more you look at this, the less you hear from our politicians, the more dangerous this gets. South Africa is at a bad tipping point right now. This could go either way. Either we make it untenable, like we did in the later stages of state capture, or the country goes to the bad guys. And I'm not being dramatic about it. I'm talking about countries like Colombia that fell over in the hands of gangs, Haiti, Mexico. We've seen countries that have fallen over. In Africa, there's a dozen of them that eventually became countries run by gangster organizations, and South Africa is getting perilously close to that. If this doesn't reverse and reverse quickly, this country is in a lot of trouble. All we can do is keep you updated with what's going on, but it doesn't look very good right now. At least you came here, you got your news. I hope we didn't depress you too much. Cheer me up by subscribing to this channel. Cheer me up by supporting Pace Car Rental. Cheer yourself up, pour yourself a scotch. That's all you can do. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you again soon.